Hello and welcome to Zonie Living. I'm Bonnie Stevens. Today's show is about mentoring, giving back, and leading by example. The amazing Mary Jo West has been my role model since I was a teenager growing up watching the cool KOOL television news in Phoenix. Mary Jo was the first anchor woman to hold a primetime news slot in this major television market. And in that position, she demonstrated what it meant to be professional, talented, smart, cool under pressure, and a first-rate storyteller. In the 1970s, it was becoming more clear that women could have a seat in the television newsroom and on the air. Mary Jo showed me and thousands of others what it took to earn that seat. I am thrilled to report that the Mary Jo West Excellence in Communications Scholarship that now exists at Coconino Community College in Flagstaff has just granted its first award. The young woman is Emily Mackenzie. Emily is going to school at Coconino Community College and is enrolled in the unique CCC to NAU program. In fact, it was that program that attracted her to Flagstaff from her home in Alaska, along with the beautiful mountains in northern Arizona, of course. I have to tell you, the CCC to NAU program is incredible. It provides a pathway from CCC to Northern Arizona University. Participants enjoy the benefits of being connected to the larger NAU, such as living on campus, having a meal plan, participating in clubs, and being guided by counselors who are familiar with both institutions and know what credits transfer. Students also enjoy the ease of a smaller, more intimate campus with fewer students in classes and the more affordable tuition of a community college. Mary Jo West and I got to meet Emily recently on the CCC campus during the Students' First Scholarship Awards celebration. Here's why we are so thrilled and feel so blessed. First of all, Emily loves nature, loves being outdoors, and loves adventure. She hikes and skis, and as you can see here, she plays rugby on the NAU Women's Club team. Emily's interests lie in political science and journalism. Her mom earned her degree, her doctorate degree, from NAU. And listen to this, Emily has been giving a voice to important matters and creating change since she was in elementary school. As a girl, she collected signatures from her classmates and petitioned the school board to put a salad bar in her cafeteria. The school board agreed with her, and from then on, lunchtime was a bounty of fresh lettuce, tomatoes, carrots, and cucumbers. Emily says she is so grateful for the scholarships that she's received and how they've helped her and her family. Her brother, by the way, is also in college right now. This financial support, she says, has allowed her to focus on her studies without worrying so much about the financial part. What I am most proud of with this scholarship is the mentoring component. Mary Jo West and I built that into the scholarship to be available for coaching sessions, to offer insight or guidance or just be there for support in any way that we can, and that is really special. Imagine having access to an Arizona Broadcasting Hall of Fame recipient while you are going to school to become a journalist. For moms out there raising a budding journalist, please go to coconino.edu/scholarship and have your daughter apply. You can also read about CCC to NAU and scholarships in the November 2022 issue of Flagstaff Business News. Online, you can find it at flagstaffbusinessnews.com. And by the way, Mary Jo is celebrating a birthday in November. Her birthday wish is for others to support the scholarship. Here's a quote from her. "Journalism plays a critical role in the preservation of democracy, and it is vital to prepare young people to study journalism and seek the truth. It is also crucial to make sure that those covering the news come from multicultural backgrounds, and that is one of our goals, creating more diversity in journalism." Mary Jo continues to give back. It's truly been a theme throughout her life. She sat down with me for my very first Zonie Living program in October 2021, right here in Dave Pratt's Star Worldwide Network studio in Scottsdale. There's the gang. You can see Hank, Rob, me, Robin, and Mary Jo. We talked about breaking into the television news business. We also discussed the night a gunman held 2 of our coworkers hostage for hours in the studio. We discussed mental illness and also her work with HIV-positive orphans in Africa. She and her church, the Praise and Worship Center in Chandler, raised money to build them a well and bring clean water to the village of Gem, which is about 4 hours north of Nairobi in the country of Kenya. Here's the Zonie Living interview with the legendary Mary Jo West. Joining me now is pioneering television news anchorwoman Mary Jo West. Mary Jo, I am so excited, and this is such an honor to have you with me. Mary Jo has interviewed presidents, Mother Teresa.
Yes.
A number of celebrities.
Pee Wee Herman.
The
full gamut.
Of course. And you would remember Mary Jo West as the pioneering newswoman who sat next to Bill Close as the first anchor woman in primetime in Phoenix, this huge market. And in those days, the television news business was even more difficult and tougher than it is today. And also, Bill Close had a great reputation for being a tough newsman as well. So, Mary Jo, bring us back to the 1970s when you took that amazing seat and broke the glass ceiling for so many of us in broadcasting.
Well, Bonnie, I am going to answer your question, I promise, but I want to thank you for bringing your program, the Zonie Living. You can see it even behind us. That's going to inspire thousands. It really is. But as you can see from the ad that was up on the screen, it was a very, very scary time for women because we were allowed to do the grocery store stories and the baby stories, but we were not allowed to do those hard-hitting, meaningful issues stories. Not that baby stories aren't important, believe me. But it was a scary time, and I know that the cosmetic burden that we had was just so huge. You know, you couldn't get wrinkles. You had to wear the right outfit or have the right hairstyle.
Sure.
And when you changed, the operation and the operator would just go crazy because of the thousands of phone calls it felt like that would come in. What happened to her tonight?
That always bothered me when people paid more attention to how my hair looked than what my stories were.
That's right. And unfortunately, I think it's still going on. But getting back to what you were talking about, it was a very difficult time because we were not treated as equals in the newsroom. And that really hurt. And if you watch that funny movie called Anchorman with Will Ferrell, a lot of that is really, really true. I wanted the opportunity to be a broadcast journalist, not just as the newspaper called me, the Gannett wrote, arm decoration and anchorette.
Oh, how insulting.
It was important to be a journalist, to go out and do the right interviews like you're doing now, thank you so much, and getting the truth. And what I want to get out more than anything is that when we did the news, we had both sides of the story, and if we didn't, we could get fired, and it had to be balanced, and we were never allowed to give our own opinion.
Right.
But I know one day I did a groundbreaking series on rape. There was many elderly women in the area getting sexually assaulted. So I did this series and lucked out and won my first Emmy. But when I read the domestic violence and rape kind of statistics on the air, my co-anchor Bill Close would literally said on the air, "That's just not true." So as a woman, I was trying to change the way that a lot of people viewed things, and that was very, very difficult.
You know, I recall we couldn't even say rape on the air.
Well, he would not say the word rape or pregnant. And I called my series Rape, and so he could never intro it. But
that's funny.
Now I'm thinking, wow, that was a bold thing to do.
Right.
But it was just a wake-up call to me as a woman that we women could bring extra kinds of strength and breadth to the news that maybe men hadn't had the opportunity to.
Some depth about issues that we could completely understand and be empathetic about.
Yes, Bonnie.
You know, one of the stories that I remember that you did was called Women Cops.
Yes.
And of course, that took Mary Jo to boot camp, but it also got the attention of CBS network management and launched you into New York, the huge market of New York.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Women Cops, what that was like, producing and being involved with that?
I wish I could say it was an original idea, but the late Jessica Savage, who during my era had done it in Philadelphia, so I borrowed her idea. And the first 2 weeks that female and male police officers went through their training, I did the same thing, and I went. To
remember that. I worked as a writer back then for Mary Jo, and I remember you coming in after your morning of boot camp, and coming into the newsroom. And
because I wanted to see exactly what they were going through, and I followed four female trainees through the 4 months of training. I only did 2 weeks, and it almost killed me. I could never get over that darn wall. It was humiliating. It really was. No makeup and failing. But I was able to really get inside of what the female officers were going through, and the male officers. And recently, I went to a retirement party for one of the male officers who was in that series. But obviously, I have a special feeling for our police officers and what they go through.
Oh, absolutely. And I especially believe they need to hear that message today. That's fantastic. I wanted to also talk to you about when you left television news and you went into, you started your own production company, and you did a series called Dying to Be Thin.
Yeah.
This was the topic of anorexia. And back in those days, I believe that was one of the first times that anybody brought attention and shine the light on this mental illness that was really devastating, and it was happening to a lot of my girlfriends.
Absolutely.
And today I understand that young boys, teenage boys, are now, this is a condition that's prevalent among them as well. So it hasn't gone away. So tell us about that.
It hasn't gone away, and I think it could be worse. And the addiction of not being able to eat is one of the toughest, we realize in talking to the medical doctors, one of the toughest to quote, cure. I don't know if you could ever cure it. But it was co-produced. I got to co-produce it with a wonderful woman from Channel 12 named Donna Vogt. And she and I did this half-hour special, and I will never forget it. In fact, we even interviewed a track runner from Brophy College Prep who was male. And that was the first time I think anyone showed what you just talked about, that even men have eating disorders. And he died. And his parents, I will never, ever forget, and I'm always so grateful to them for going on camera and talking about his death. But as you know, women and men are still, and boys and girls are still dying from this. So that cosmetic burden of looking the best you can is still out there. But it was groundbreaking, and I salute Donna, my co-producer, for bringing up this subject.
Yeah, brave topic.
Yes.
Brave reporting. I also wanted to talk about one of the most compelling stories that happened in Phoenix back on May 28th, I believe, of 1982. And you all remember, if you've been here for any length of time, you'll remember what I call the night Phoenix became a big city.
Yes.
And that was the night that Bill Close and our teleprompter operator, Louis Villa, they were both held at gunpoint for 4.5 hours in the studio while we were doing the news. So Mary Jo, for me, that was probably the most intense 4.5 hours I've ever had in my whole life. But for Mary Jo, she had to remain professional, calm and cool, deliver the news, and act like nothing was happening. It was just a regular business day, because that's what they asked her to do. So Mary Jo, take us back to that time.
Well, first I want to say that, Bill Close had his flaws just like I do, and we all do.
Sure, we all do.
But that night he was such a hero, and he kept that mentally ill gunman, Joe Billy Gwynn, at bay, and he made him a promise. He said, Joe Billy wanted to read this script on the air that didn't make any sense.
Right.
And so Bill said, if I allow you to read this on the air, will you give me the gun? And sure enough, he did. And they shook hands. I'll never forget that moment. But that's where the acting training that I had, for those of you listening to this, you may want to say, well, what should I do to ever get in this business?
Absolutely.
Well, for years I was a performer in music and acting, and that's where it came in, because I had to look at that camera, and pretend like nothing was going on, because my producers and in the control room said, pretend like nothing's going on. And so sure enough, 4.5 hours later is when he gave Bill the gun. And I want to say thank you to the Phoenix Police Department and their negotiating team. They did such a great job, and to the management at Cool News at the time.
Oh, everybody was so cool, and I remember that being so civil the whole time. And we had a newsroom, a studio full of reporters from all over Arizona, and some were national reporters as well. And I remember people sitting like kindergartners with their knees crossed, sitting on the floor in the studio as Mary Jo is delivering the news, and everybody just silent, just worried about Bill, worried about what was going to happen next. And Mary Jo is the true professional. And this was also during your series, as we just mentioned, Women and Cops. So you were already being put through the ringer that week.
You have such a good memory. You're doing
that was
a great
pretty
job.
Intense time.
But I had gotten up at 5 a.m. to run Heartbreak Hill, or try to run it. And that night, between breaks, I would dive under the set and lay down because I kept throwing up during that whole night. And it wasn't because of the crisis. It was because of being sick from the heat of running up Heartbreak Hill. So a lot was going on. So I guess the point of that story is if you become a reporter or an anchor, you can't let something like throwing up get in the way. But
no excuses.
But to Bill Close, he saved so many lives that night because the other people were let go. And all that time I was anchoring, no one told me what was going on in the next studio. And so all of a sudden I see the top reporters from the other TV stations come in and sit, as you said, in front of me. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And finally I realized what was going on.
That's just an incredible time. What I remember is we talked about this a couple of years ago in a story that we were doing together. And you said Bill allowed Joseph to be seen. And that's Joseph Billy Gwynn, who was the gunman. And you said he gave him his moment of fame, and that made him feel important. He kept calm, treated this mentally ill man with respect, and gained his trust. And you also said, I just praise Bill Close to this day. This was one of the greatest things he ever did. He saved people's lives. He was a hero.
That's so true. And Bill is no longer with us. Bill died a few years ago. And what I think that planted that seed to helping people with mental illness, and it's something that I still do to this day. That young man was sent to prison, and we have lost contact from him. So I God bless him. I hope that he got the help that he needed.
Yeah, most definitely. And I do love that about you too. You have given a face to mental illness and depression. You've spent so much time in volunteering and helping in facilities in Phoenix and encouraging people, giving people hope, and really listening, which is so important.
Well, people think that mental illness, clinical depression, bipolar disorder is a weakness. And what I always tell people, it's an illness. It's a real illness.
Absolutely.
We take medication for other kinds of illnesses, whether it's heart or lung or diabetes. But I will be taking, I want to be real honest about this, and we can do it, hopefully, if you ever do a whole show on this, I'd love to come on, because I was on the Oprah Winfrey show telling my story. But I'll be taking medication the rest of my life for my clinical depression. And we just have to know that there's so much help and hope out there.
Sure. And I think you have lifted that stigma.
Thank you.
That was so prevalent.
It still is,
ago.
but it's gotten so much better.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. That's so dear. I wanted to talk about some of the people that you've interviewed over the years, and you gave me a few favorites, so I'm going to throw out a name.
All right.
And you can share with us. So let's start with feminist Gloria Steinem.
Oh, my goodness. Gloria Steinem. We did this interview at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night in New York City. And what sticks out, besides the fact they gave me 15 minutes of live airtime, and we went on to like almost 2 hours. But this was on a show called Night Watch on CBS News Network. She kept offering to bring me coffee, and she did bring me coffee. She was such a servant leader. You know, you think of feminists, we think of the Bella Abzug, and God bless Bella, but Gloria couldn't have, she's like you, Bonnie. She's just so giving and so kind, but will not, back down. And so that was one of my favorite interviews.
She is definitely a strong woman.
Yes.
President Ronald Reagan.
Yes. Well, actually, I sang at Ronald Reagan's wife's, I want to get this right, Nancy Reagan's father's funeral. He was a wonderful doctor here at the time in Phoenix, a retired doctor. So when he died, I got a call from the White House to sing at the funeral here in Phoenix. And so President Reagan, I try not to be overwhelmed when people walk in the room, but when I did get to speak with him, I was overwhelmed, and it was like literally 120 degrees outside.
Oh,
and I'll
bet.
never forget how all the Secret Service guys would never take off their jackets. But of course, President Reagan it was an honor to interview him.
Well, he has such a presence, and I just love how you say that, because none of us can say, well, I got a call from the White House one day, and when I was on Oprah, and so you can all see
gosh.
just how it's just such an honor to be sitting here with you. And then I also wanted to talk about missionary and nun Mother Teresa.
Well, you've heard some reporters, I know in your wonderful career, say, well, that interview changed my life. Well, that interview with Mother Teresa literally changed my life. To try to make a long story short, if you ever do a show on adoption, bring me in. She ended up giving me a baby to adopt from her orphanage in Honduras.
How does this happen? Mother Teresa hands you a baby. This is for the rest of time. Right?
And it was just unbelievable. I had asked an innocent question after we had finished the interview. Mother, do you ever allow Americans to adopt children from your orphanages in India? And at first she said, oh no, you Americans, you kill your babies, because she obviously was very pro-life. But then she turned around and she said, but Mary Jo, because you love the poor and the Virgin Mary so much, I'm going to give you a baby. And all of us on the plane, the crew and I, we started crying. It was just one of those moments that to this day feels surreal. Well, Molly ended up with us. We got her out of Honduras at 10 months old, and now she's 33, and I'm a wonderful
congratulations.
grandmother of 3 precious grandchildren.
And yes, she is the light of your life and your grandchildren. I know that. I know that for a fact. So I want to talk about, you are obviously a world traveler, but you have been spending a lot of time in Africa over the last couple of...
Just the last 5 years, yes,
5
for
years.
Africa, yes.
And you're leaving again in
Yes.
January. So
Yes.
so share with us what's happening.
It's important for those of you listening or watching to know that you, one person, can plant that seed and make a difference. So I was invited to go to a remote village outside of Nairobi, not outside, 4 hours away, and we stumbled upon some orphans in a village called Gem, G-E-M, who had HIV/AIDS, and no one wanted them. They all lived in one house. They ate once a day. There was not one toy. There was nothing. They were in rags. And so they stole our hearts. And so I came back, in my little church in Chandler, I showed a video to my church, and we decided that the best thing that they needed was a well, because these children would go down these steep cliffs to drink this horrible feces-infested water. And so it took almost 4 years, because if you do something with a third world country, it's not in American time. And finally, the well was completed. We're so excited.
Oh, congratulations.
And now the kids just take their yellow jugs and walk just a few feet, and there's the well.
That is huge.
We're going to go back, and we're going to congratulate and hug everyone and come back and show our little church. We raised $20,000, and while that doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, to us it was life-changing for them.
Absolutely.
So we're going back, and they have a school that they meet where in a chicken shed. So now we're going to go back and try to help their school get better looking and functioning. So I'm just so honored that I got to make this trip. And again, it was teamwork with my church. And please forgive me, Global Hope Network International. Global Hope Network International is the name of the organization that I got to travel with. And they do this all over the world and help empower villages, not throw money at them, but empower them. They have to give back in certain ways.
Wow, that's all I can say. And I know that so many women out there especially know how generous and giving you are, Mary Jo. And one of the quotes I remember is back when I was in college, I heard you say this, and I may not have it exactly right, but I heard you say, for someone who's trying to get into the news business, first, I'll try to talk you out of it, and then I'll help you any way I can. And I'm here to tell you that this is the most authentic, genuine woman. And tell me about that. I mean, tell me why you would talk us out of it.
Because it's not what you think it is. Because so many would-be journalists think they're first going to make lots and lots of money.
Oh, yeah.
And second, they're going to meet all these celebrities. Well, when you start a career in broadcasting, you're probably going to be an editor or an assistant producer. That's what you were.
A writer, sure.
A writer, of course. Oh, your writing is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And you're going to be making maybe minimum wage. I'm not sure.
Oh boy, I think I was probably under
minimum wage.
Because you work so hard and your whole life is about news. You eat, sleep, and breathe news all the time because you don't want to get behind. There's so much pressure to stay on top of what's happening.
Bonnie, you're right. There's no deadline in the news business. And especially now with social media taking over, things happen so fast. I would say unless you're eternally curious, I would say to that would-be journalist,
sure.
Don't get in it. Don't get in it. You have to have, and I'll never forget this advice from a general manager, because I was crying because it's a long story, but things were changed, and I thought my life was over, and it wasn't. But you have to have a second skin. You have to have a tough skin, and you can't take things personally. And when TV shows are canceled, or you can't take it personally, you move on, you let it go, and you learn from it. And what else can I tell you? Read as much as you can. And to those of you coming along, and you're already probably digitally up to speed, but becoming digitally up to speed, learn how to run the camera, learn how to run the video camera if you want to go into broadcast news, learn how to write, and just read as much as you can, because you don't ever know what subject that you're going to be covering that day. As you remember, every day is diverse. One day you might be covering a dog, a contest of the most beautiful dog. Well, the next day you're covering racial riots. It's just this incredible spectrum of what you're going to be covering.
Which makes it incredibly exciting.
Yes,
and
it
very
is.
high energy. So there's that element as well. But yes, you want to be at least somewhat prepared, even on a shallow level, so you're aware of these issues that are happening around us.
And give each issue, I don't care if it is you don't like dogs and you've got to cover this dog show, you take that same enthusiasm and that same creativity, which, by the way, you have, and you make that, take your own dog with you if you're, well, if you don't like dogs, you won't have a dog, but you know what I mean. Make it creative and give, because those people doing that program are important, just as important as the people in the riot that you're covering.
And they are passionate every bit about their issue
Absolutely.
as anybody else's. So I wanted to take this moment to talk about the fact that Mary Jo West continues to mentor. She's still helping young people. And together we have started a scholarship, which I am over the top excited about. It's called the Mary Jo West Excellence in Communication Scholarship. It's at Coconino Community College, and that has campuses in Flagstaff and Page. It's part of the CCC to NAU program. And Mary Jo, this just warms my heart to be able to collaborate with you on this. And I really feel like we'll be able to touch people with a meaningful experience through this scholarship.
Bonnie Stevens, this has been the greatest gift you could have ever given me or anyone. I'm going to cry now because it's taking, through your generosity.
You're such a dear.
It's taking what we've learned in our lifetime and passing it on to the younger generation. And I love that you came up with the idea of Coconino County College.
Coconino Community
College.
College.
Yeah, see,
CCC.
I'm so
It's easier to say CCC.
I'm crying. And I know what the school is, and which can also feed students into NAU.
Absolutely, and we're hoping that this program is a student that's already involved in the CCC to NAU program. And we also have a preference that this be a Native American woman. This is Mary Jo's preference because
when we were in the newsroom all those years, and still, when you watch a newscast, I feel our Native American community is so underserved by reporters and by anchors. You know, there's this wonderful woman, Patty Talahangva, who I got to work with. But Patty she and one other person, Roy Track, were like the only people at our time, during our time, who were Native Americans. And if we could encourage a Native American student to get into broadcasting, and NAU is in, obviously, the area, and CCC, of course, is where they can start.
Sure.
If they're overwhelmed by the idea of full-time college, they can start at CCC, which is what's so great about your idea.
Really fantastic place to start. And I want to point out that this is financial assistance, of course, but even more than that, and I would have been crazy to get this scholarship when I was young, but this, even more than that, that's a mentoring opportunity and coaching with Mary Jo West and with me to help guide this student and help them through the rough times and navigate through college.
Well, I was thinking usually you start a scholarship fund for someone who's died, which is fine.
Not my intention.
But what I love about your idea is that we have this scholarship that we're giving away, but we can, as you just said, we can be there for that student, to be their mentor, to help them if they choose. And I just think that's so exciting.
We're not going to force ourselves on these.
No, we're not going to force. We're not going to show up their dorm and embarrass them. But yes, and so that's an even meatier part to the scholarship. Thank you, Bonnie.
Oh, thank you. And this scholarship will take effect next fall in 2022. So if you want to find out more about that, you can go to flagstaffbusinessnews.com. You can also go to coconino.communitycollege.com. This is really such a great opportunity for a deserving student. And I want to thank you so much, Mary Jo, for being with me. This is so important to me. This is full circle for me from being a teenage girl, watching Mary Tyler Moore and watching her navigate the world of television news, and then having a real life mentor right here in Phoenix who has helped thousands of women and thousands of all kinds of people get to the next level in television news. Thank you so much for joining me. You are my eternal role model and mentor, and it means so much for me to have you here.
Bonnie, you are such a pro. It's an honor to sit with you.
Thank you so much. Mary Jo recently revisited Gem. Through her visits and correspondence, she became especially close to this young boy, Kip. You can see her with him sitting on a hospital bed. Kip was 12 years old when he died from AIDS during one of her visits. She says Kip is one of the reasons she will keep returning to help the other children whose parents died from AIDS and passed it on to their offspring. She reports that most of the 50 or so orphans there have HIV, but not full-blown AIDS like Kip did. Of course, there is always the risk of that happening. Mary Jo West continues to empower women. This photo is actually a picture of her with a Kenyan woman known as Mama Habiba. With a loan from Global Hope Network International, Mama Habiba now has her own business. And in this image, you can see a woman sewing at the Empowerment Center, where Global Hope Network International teaches vocational skills to both men and women. I hope you've been inspired by this edition of Zonie Living, Business, Adventure, and Leadership. I'm Bonnie Stevens.